Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on best practices in firewall management. My name is Nikhil, and I welcome you to today's webinar. Today's webinar would be hosted by Sabu Thalia. Sabu holds a bachelor's degree in computer engineering from Mumbai University. He has 13 plus years of experience in the field of information technology across development, technical support, and quality assurance. In his current and past experience, he has been extensively involved in various aspects of quality, performance, security, interoperability, and usability of various enterprise information technology security products. Sabu heads the quality assurance team for Terminator. Over the last couple of years, his focus has been building a quality upstream, driving good engineering practices across development and quality assurance teams. Prior to Cookhill, Sabu was associated with companies such as Blue Jeans Network and Symantec. He is passionate about Linux, networking, and security, and has conducted numerous sessions on quality assurance and Linux networking. Now handing over the proceedings to Sabu. Just a small announcement: in case you have any questions about today's webinar, then you can make a note of the slide number and send us those questions via the chat window. At the end of the session after this webinar, we would try and answer as many questions as possible. In case you need to refer to this webinar again, then we would be sharing with you a link to the recording of today's webinar along with the presentation which would be hosted on SlideShare. Now handing over the proceedings to Sabu. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hey Nikhil, thanks for that introduction. Um, uh, Hello everyone. Let's quickly get into the topic of the day. That is best practice in firewall management. So I'm going to talk about 9 practices in firewall management. Some of them you might have already come across. I hope you do learn a couple of new practices from today's webinar. Okay, before I start, I would like to give a small introduction to what is a firewall, and when I say firewall today, what I actually mean to say. Because a lot of people out there, especially laymen, tend to classify a lot of security products into one single term called firewall. I think they tend to classify an intrusion detection system, a malware detection system, and a content filtering system, and multiple such kind of stuff is usually classified into a single box and talked about as firewall. Uh, but what I mean by firewall today is not those. I mean, we can say that they are application layer firewalls. That's usually the term that is used for them. What I mean to say firewall today, or the firewall that I'm going to talk about today, is actually the uh, firewall, that's a packet filtering firewall, which is also could be a stateful firewall. I'm not talking about application layer firewall today. Uh, so by definition, a firewall is a system designed to prevent unauthorized access to your private network or from your private network. So it's both ways. Uh, so traffic from WAN side to your LAN side, and from your LAN side to your WAN side, both are uh, scanned to check if it's unauthorized or not, and if it is authorized, then give the access, otherwise not. So that's what a basic firewall does. It sits usually at the perimeter level, always at the perimeter level, and works mostly based on ports and IP addresses. So not all, but around, let's say, 90% of the rules that I've seen so far, not firewalls, are usually based on source port, destination port, or source IP address, destination IP address, or an IP address range, or something like that. When I talk about firewall today, this mainly I'm talking about this kind of firewall. Although most of the practices are actually applicable to uh, every kind of firewall, even if it's an application layer firewall, it would be applicable. These practices would be applicable there too. But mostly I'm talking about this firewall in my mind. Okay, let's get started. So first, best practice I'm going to talk about is be specific. So when you add a firewall rule, you better be as specific as possible. So by default, your firewall rule should be having a default policy as deny all. Every firewall has a default policy, and many guys out there, some lazy admins out there, love to have accept all policy in a firewall. It makes stuff easy, for them, but it also makes stuff easy for a lot of hackers out there. So, uh, to be safe, it's better to have, or you must have, deny all as your default policy in the firewall. And then you allow access to specific IP address or specific port uh, to which you need to give access to. And don't give range when you don't need to give range. Let's say you need to give access to only a web service that's actually running on a default port 80, then give access to only port 80 and not give to a range of ports like 1 to 1024. That's unnecessary. Or you want to give access to a particular organization or a particular individual. So jot down that IP address of that individual or the network address of that organization, and you better give access only to that IP address instead of just saying any. Um, a lot of, I mean, this is one of the common mistakes, but a lot of people do. To be frank, sometimes when I'm lazy, I tend to do the same. I mean, like, I know it's really bad to do that, but and every time I did that, I have repented it later. So now I have, that. So I learned in hard way, you shouldn't be doing that. Um, and these have really caused issues for a lot of IT admins over there. Uh, so, this is like, let me give you an example here. It's like giving access to your office. I'm sure most of us over there have an access card based or any biometric device based access control to your office. So when people enter your office, they use access card or they use biometric devices um, to enter your office. So here, what you're doing is by default, you're denying access to anyone who is a stranger or anyone. Only if they have an access card or biometric access, they're allowed access to the office. So this is a typical case of by default denial. Now imagine the other way around, where you are giving by default accept all. In that case, in case of an office, what would happen is everyone is welcome to the office. Anyone can enter, anyone can go, and you are going to stop only those who look suspicious. Imagine that scenario, how difficult it would be to handle uh, security incidences in that kind of scenario. You don't want to do that, and no one in the world might be doing anything such with their office. So when you don't do it with your office, physical location of the building of the office, then why do it with your uh, network firewall? So always be specific. Uh, Next, practice access control to your firewall itself. Um, a lot of admins out there tend to share the logins with other admins within the team instead of creating a separate logins for them. Uh, and sometimes you also have almost half a dozen people accessing the firewall and trying to change, add, delete rules in the firewall. Um, well, it's good to have multiple admins, who can change the firewall rules and stuff. You always will have backup admins. That's good. Uh, but it's bad if you are sharing your logins, uh, because you can't track who did what. You usually see people finger pointing at each other and saying, "Hey, I didn't do this. He did that. I don't remember doing that," and stuff like that. So to keep out of all this mess, best is don't share your logins. Keep logins separate, and preferably give access to not more than one or two guys. So in any case of mess up, you know whom to catch hold of. Um, so whenever a request to add a rule, delete or change any rule to a firewall comes from your network users, uh, in many cases we observe that comes over telephone or just out there in the corridor verbally. No, you should have a change request policy. Uh, you should define how the request would be received by the admin, uh, preferably not by email or chat or something. You should have preferably a ticketing system, an IT help desk system, uh, where the user can request for an addition or editing of a firewall rule, clearly mentioning what the purpose is, and also define a policy on what kind of approvals or whose approvals are required for adding those firewall rules. Um, so this would definitely help uh, in keeping out all random requests coming into the IT admin, and not being able to keep a track of what rule is coming and for who did it for what purpose. So if you have a ticketing system, you can always keep track of why the request was added, stuff like that. So related to this, uh, the next practice is add description for every rule that you add to the firewall. So once a request comes to the IT admin from the user, using the mechanism I just talked about, let's say a ticketing system, could be something like a Bugzilla, Mantis, or any other IT ticketing system that you might have. Once an IT admin gets that, when he adds a rule on the firewall, you should be adding a description, a comment over the thing, why this rule was added. And if every rule has a description saying which team and who and for what purpose added this rule, when later, let's say after a couple of days, weeks, months, maybe even years, when you look back into your firewall, you would see probably hundreds of rules out there, and you would be able to remember why it was done in the first place. And let's say, if instead of your primary IT admin guy, his backup looks into it, or a new guy joins and looks into the firewall, he would be able to understand looking at those rules why this was added in the first place. Uh, so always add description against rules. And apart from description, you should also put an expiry date for every rule. Uh, a lot of rules that comes up out there in the firewall, a lot of requests for rule addition and uh, deletion um, usually have an expiry date. A user may want to give access to the web server inside your network for a limited amount of time for a user outside. So he may want a rule added from WAN to your LAN side for, let's say, 10 days or 2 weeks or so. Um, it's always best to put an expiry date over there saying, okay, this rule is for next 2 weeks, and periodically check the rules in your firewall, check for the expiry date, and remind the user. like, hey, your rule is going to expire, and do you want to continue keeping this rule, or you want me to delete it? Chances are that I might say, hey, I'm already done with that rule, please delete it. Okay. Again, all this stuff again should happen through your IT management help desk and not verbally or over email or something. It's difficult to track email, although emails are records. Uh, Absolutely difficult to track via phones or something. So best thing is keep track of all these comments in that IT management help desk saying, okay, expired, I'm deleting this. And in case if a person want to extend uh, that particular rule to further few days or months or whatever, then you should ask for extending that particular rule again on the change in the IT help desk or IT management ticketing system. So then you would say, okay, I want this expiry date extended to by another 1 week, and IT admin can then accordingly do that. This would help in keeping the firewall clean to see to it that there are no redundant rules or expired rules, staying out the rules that is no more required, staying out the. So always keep an expiry date. Uh, Now, you might have 100, 200, 300 rules, even much more than thousands of rules in the firewall. And imagine a day your firewall comes off. And you just can't remember what rules were put in over the. Or just imagine a case where you seriously messes up with various rules in the firewall and now you are unable to take it back to the state where it was earlier. Uh, that's when you remember how how much the backup would help you. So take periodic backups of your firewall, and as and when you face such kind of issue where your firewall comes off, or you just want to replace your firewall hardware with another one, uh, or you messed up with your firewall rules and you just want to take it to the previous state, your periodic backups would help you out. Periodically, uh, apart from doing backup, you should always review uh, the firewall. It would be best to have an external reviewer apart from the IT admin doing it. Um, so what you should be doing in that review is to look for any expired rules lying out there. There is a chances that you might have over a period of time multiple requests coming in and you adding rules for each of those requests, and you see after some time some of the rules are redundant or duplicates. Uh, let's say someone asks for access to port 80 or port, let's say 88. Port 80 is usually by default. Let's say port 88 uh, of the system in the LAN, and the IT admin adds a rule over the for port 88, and a person B comes up later after a month and says, hey, I need access to port 70 to 90, all those ports to be open, you know. So now it's a redundant or rather a duplicate rule. And there is already port 80 rule over there, and now you're adding another from 70 to 90. It's unnecessary. Either you keep 70 to 90, or you keep only 80, or you be specific. So you can ask that guy, okay, which specific port do you want? Do you really need 70 to 90, or do you want 88, 90, 86? Okay, I'll make a rule accordingly. Okay, so periodically reviewing your firewall would help you out in figuring out this kind of duplicate rules or redundant rules or rules that are expired but forgotten to be deleted by the IT admin guy. Uh, so periodic review helps you in that. Uh, in many of the organizations out there, there are multiple firewalls in various locations, various buildings of the organization. It's cumbersome to manage them separately. Best thing to do is if you have a cloud-based management support for these firewalls should be great. And you can, in that case, you can just sit at your desk, use this cloud-based management system to see the dashboard of all these firewalls in one place, control those firewalls from one place, push probably routes into these firewalls from one place. Uh, so that would, reduce your work on actually physically accessing each of the systems and trying to configure this separately. Uh, Best is to manage from central location. So choose a firewall that gives you something like a cloud-based management or a central management system. And the last best practice, uh, firewall is not the ultimate stuff. It's not enough when it comes to IT security. Um, Firewall would work best when you complement the firewall with other security products, such as an intrusion prevention system or an endpoint security. Think of a case where a employee brings in a USB a pen drive or a hard disk into your organization, and let's say it's infected. Uh, it got infected at his home. He brings in and inserts that into your PC. Your PC gets infected and malware spreads, and you are actually uh, letting your network hack from within. Firewall may not be able to help you in such scenarios. So in that case, an endpoint security system, an endpoint security software installed on the device could help by stopping unauthorized access via USB drives or any external drives, or by cleaning up the device in case it is infected by viruses and malwares. So an endpoint security system and a firewall in this case, let's say in this example, endpoint security system and firewall together would complement each other and see to it that your system, your network is secure from both external as well as internal security threats. So always uh, complement the firewall with many other security products. Thank you. So that's the 9 best practices from my side. Off to Nikhil.
Thank you, Sabu, for this wonderful session, and hope this has helped you get a deeper insight on what are the best practices to be followed when you are working with a firewall within your organization. We would now begin with the Q&A session uh, for today. So let me bring up the questions which have been asked by our audience. Just give me one quick second here. Okay, so the first question that we have for today is Vinayak Kale, who's asked us if we can share the presentation after this webinar. So yes, Vinayak, as advised earlier, we would be sharing the recording video of today's webinar and this presentation, which would be hosted on SlideShare. We would be sending out an emails to all the registered attendees of today's webinar with the links to both the video, which would be hosted on a YouTube channel for Seqrite, and also the link to the presentations on SlideShare. Okay. We have a question from Mr. Jitendra, And Mr. Jitendra is asking us earlier, he had implemented the firewall for restricting certain websites, but it was preventing permitted websites also. So, Sabu, can you just help Jitendra with this question?
Um, yeah, I think in this case the support can help him out. It could be a case of miscategorization. Like there is hundreds and thousands, millions of websites or URLs out there, and it's difficult to rightly categorize some of the URLs and might get miscategorized. So if you call up the support or email them, they will help you out in correctly categorizing that website or giving you a workaround till time it is correctly categorized. I think support could help you.
Okay. The next question is from Srikant. He asks, is it a best practice using a forward with blade IPS, IDS, AV URL filtering other, or it needs to be separated?
Uh, that's a good question. That depends. Now, UTM, that is Unified Threat Management Products, like the one which we have, Quick Heal Terminator, is the one such that you just mentioned. It's a firewall along with IPS IDS and AV URL filtering and stuff like that. There are advantages of combining them, and there is pros and cons on both sides. If you combine them, easy to manage. It's one single device that would from where you can manage all these blades. He's talking about IPS, IDS, and AV, and all those things. Like one which you have in Kill Terminator, it's combined in a single box. All this security stuff. It's easy to manage. Uh, so the cons are sometimes when it comes to performance, when you have a single device, uh, the performance usually is affected, and also it acts as a single point of failure. So in case of failure, that's a single point. But in case of Terminator, like for example, we do have various ranges of devices. So based on the number of users, you can, if you have high number of users, you can use a high performance system so that your performance is not degraded. And also there are features like HA, the high availability and failover and stuff like that. So in case if one device goes down due to some reason, you always have the other device taking over. So it's I can say a matter of choice. So Nikhil?
Okay, we have the next question from
How do you come to know somebody's hacking?
user-based system. So
Oh,
Jitendra again has asked another question. So his question is, can we also have a user-based restriction instead of a system-based?
okay, so if I rightly understand what you meant to say is like, can we have a user-based restriction instead of IP-based or MAC address-based? A system is identified by an IP or a MAC address, so I think that's what you meant to ask. Yes, definitely we can have user-based restrictions too. The application firewalls, the layer 7 firewalls usually does this. UTM does have support for user-based restrictions too. Um, so the quick Seqrite terminator have user-based restrictions wherein we can have URL filtering, website categorizations and stuff like that. And such multiple features are there that works on a user instead of an IP address or a MAC address. Yes, it is possible.
We have another question from Rushikesh. What about LAN side virus proration?
Okay, if I understand correctly, you mean to say, what about land side virus protection, right?
I think yes, it is
Yeah.
protection. This is better.
So That's exactly what I was saying in my last slide. Complement the firewall with an endpoint security system. And, a firewall can protect you, especially if it's an application layer firewall, like Seqrite Terminator can protect you from viruses entering in your network or into your system from external, that is from LAN side. But if someone gets a device inside into your LAN, and then if your viruses are propagating from within the LAN, your firewall may not be able to help out. In that case, an endpoint security system is what would help. So always complement your firewall with other security products like an endpoint security system. Okay. Jitendra is saying, no, I mean to say different staff using the same system. So again, you mean to say different staff, that means different users using the same system means, in short, they might be using the same IP address or same MAC address. I mean, a system is defined either by a MAC address or an IP address, which are usually unique to a system. Um, so yes, definitely. Uh, the user-based restrictions would help even if the users, your staff is using the same system.
Okay. I think we're done with today's questions here. Okay, we have one more question from Dinesh Chauhan. Uh, how to restrict users to access social networking sites like Facebook, Twitter, etc., or limit the time or the quota to specific users in the Seqrite EPS 6.2. I think this is a question regarding the endpoint security and not the Terminator firewall. Uh, if you could help in
Uh,
how if this can be done using the Terminator.
well, yeah, definitely this can be done using the Terminator, uh, and I think if your question is exactly how to do it using Terminator, then you can either go, I mean that would be out of scope of this session, and it will take quite some time for me to explain it here. So either you go via the help, or you can contact the support. The support will help you out there. But if you are asking specifically about EPS, sorry, I'm not from the EPS department. And again, you can go to the help or the support, and they will definitely help you.
Okay. Uh,
Okay, question from Uttam Jadhav. We have used endpoint security, and can I use centralized firewall setting? Yes, definitely. So in this case, you are complementing your endpoint security with the firewall. Why not? Okay. Uh, Again, as I said, they're okay. Sorry, let me. What is, okay. After implementing.
uh, there's another question from Bharat. Is there any application which helps us to access console page of a firewall through smartphones, Windows, iPhones, and Android?
Hmm. Uh, that's a good feature enhancement, I can say, that can go into security. It's there in our enhancement list, in the pipeline. I cannot promise any kind of ETA on this, but definitely I'll give this feedback. to the team, and let's see if we can come as soon as possible with an ad for accessing firewall page. If you're talking about security terminator in this case.
Thank you for that answer, Sabu. We have a question from Subhashish Chakraborty. What are the best policy we can implement on an Exchange 2013 server?
Okay, well, I'm not very sure about uh, what exactly this question meant. I mean, is it Exchange server you used? I'm not good at many of this product, so I'm assuming the Exchange server is used as a mail server in this case. So if you are asking what's the best policy we can implement on your mail server, um, well, then I would say use the secure ports and always use authentication before SMTP. So use these features that comes on Exchange or your mail server. That is authentication before SMTP, and also use SSL security features that comes in those mail servers. Um, Apart from obviously having a firewall in front of Exchange that would protect you from intrusion, I think that would be the best policy for your Exchange server. Uh, Question from Samir Tapkir: can we use VPN through firewall? It's got this. Um, okay, I think you mean to say, can we use VPN through firewall as a best practice? Yes, definitely. I mean, when you have to give access to remote clients to your firewall, uh, or I mean through your firewall to your LAN, using VPN is the best way, obviously. Yeah. Can Terminator support VPN? Asked by Rajendra Aute. Yes, Terminator supports VPN, both SSL VPN as well as IPsec VPN, site-to-site VPN, and an individual to uh, the organization VPN too. So that comes via SSL as well as IPsec VPN. Yes, Terminator does have VPN support. Uh, Jayashankar Iyer. Presently, we don't have any firewall in our organization. Which firewall would you suggest? Well, I'm representing Seqrite brand right now here, so definitely Seqrite Terminator is what I would suggest.
Why?
Yeah. Uh, yeah, and if you want to know why, I would suggest that Security Terminator is actually a UTM, which is a Unified Threat Management. So apart from the packet filtering stateful firewall that I was talking about today, there is also proxy firewall. There is also application layer firewall, an application control firewall, and also an intrusion prevention system, uh, and also an antivirus, all unified into one single device. Um, that's what security terminator is. So that's that would give you security from all these kind of security issues or hacking plus from viruses and malwares, etc. So one single device giving you multiple security levels. Hence, I would suggest uh, a UTM product. In our case, that is secure and terminated. Uh, Jitendra asking question again, can we put restrictions on outgoing mails based on keyword through Outlook or webmail, or can we have an alert system while using Quick Heal Firewall? Definitely, this is a feature that is coming up in our latest version of Security Terminator. well, there is a feature called keyword blocking. So based on keywords, you can block uh, mails or access of websites and stuff. Blocking access of websites based on keywords is already present, but it's extended to mail protection also in our upcoming release. So yes, definitely it's there. Jayashankar Iyer asking, how does Seqrite work? Wow, that's out of scope for this discussion. I mean, I'll have to go on and on and on.
We will email
So,
the product brochure.
yeah, so if you would like us to email you the product brochure and some details, we would do that. You can also look over on Seqrite website
Security.
for Seqrite. It's a Seqrite Terminator. So website is www.seqrite.com. There also you would find details on how Seqrite Terminator work. We can also email you some brochure. Bharat Babbar asking how many internet lines it can merge of network load balancing. We That depends on the range of device that you would be buying, but we can support say from anywhere from 4 to 8 or 9. I don't remember the exact highest range, but yes, from 4 lines to 9 lines should be possible, and that's a lot. Uh, Uttam Jadhav asking again, what is IDS, IPS, and DDoS option in endpoint, and how to use? Uh, if you mean to say endpoint security, EPS, um, it's again out of scope of this discussion. I'm from networking department, so uh,
For sure.
yeah. So we can talk to support. You can email support, and they will help you out. If you are saying if you want details on how it works or how exactly to use it.
I think we are done with today's questions. Thank you very much for joining us on today's webinar. And if you have more questions, you can definitely write to us at corporatecommunications@quickhill.co.in, and we will answer your questions to your best satisfaction. I thank you again, Sabu, for helping us in sharing your knowledge about the UTM firewall and the best practices of managing it. And thank you everyone for joining us in today's webinar. It's bye from Nikhil, and you have a great day ahead.